goodness. All right, what's up guys? If you're new around here, I actually daily this ND3 Miata in Los Angeles. People always talk about how LA has really bad traffic, and it is true to some extent. Definitely not as bad as people make it out to be, but it can get pretty hellish at times. I bought this car brand new without knowing how to drive manual, and now I daily the car in LA. I pretty much taught myself how to drive manual in pretty heavy traffic. I've picked up a few things specific to driving manual in heavy traffic that I thought I'd want to share with you guys, because at least when I was learning, a lot of these like driving manual videos are like, oh, how can you drive manual smoothly? But I feel like the next stage, after you're already at a point where like, okay, like you can do your starts okay, you can shift pretty smoothly, and you kind of know how to, you know, go up and down the gears. I feel like the next step up is like gaining confidence in driving in heavy traffic. I know for the first few months when I was learning to drive manual, every time I went out like in heavy traffic, I got hella anxiety. And I also actively avoided going out during like rush hour because I knew I'd have a tough time and I'd be like really nervous. So yeah, these are just some tips that I picked up along the way that have really helped me gain confidence and also just like improve my mindset around driving in heavy traffic. I'm in the thick of Silver Lake Saturday afternoon traffic right now. I think this is probably a good place to talk about my first point. And that is to always be scanning ahead, at least to the next light or even the next two lights, so that you can kind of like plan your actions in advance. And the reason you want to do this is because the more information you have about what's coming, the more you can plan what gear you need to be in, what actions you need to be prepared to take, so that when the time comes to either perform them or when the time comes that requires you to be in a specific gear, like you're already ready for that. And it's a much less stressful situation for yourself. And it's also just a lot easier for you to take those actions because you don't need to do them as reactively. There's a lot of different situations that this kind of idea like applies to. One good example is, let's say you're scanning like one traffic light or two traffic lights ahead. And let's say you're coming into an intersection and the light is red. And you see that it's been red for a while. You're coming in from a distance and it's already been red when you're like a couple hundred feet away. In this situation, it makes sense to try to downshift into as low of a gear as you can, preferably into like second gear, maybe third gear, and to just approach this light very slowly, because chances are, because it's been red for so long, by the time you approach this light, it'll have turned green. And since you're still in gear, you're still in third or second gear, whatever, you can kind of just stay in gear and just speed up and catch up with traffic and you're good. As opposed to always defaulting to like coming to a full stop and then shifting into neutral and then having to suddenly like do a start unnecessarily and put more wear on your clutch and your transmission because you didn't plan ahead and you didn't realize that you could have just downshifted a few times and saved yourself from having to do a start like that. So that's like one example, right? There's so many other examples, like it's kind of hard for me to cover all of them, but if you start to kind of always think about, okay, like I need to scan one or two lights ahead and think through the situation that you're currently in and how you can optimize your actions and your thought patterns to make the most of that situation, then you'll find yourself in a lot less stressful situations because you're just more ready for them, right? So like this light, I see it's been red for a while, so I'm gonna start downshifting. Hopefully it turns green by the time we get there so I can just, yep, it's green again. I'm going pretty slow. And the traffic has just started moving and I'm still in second gear. And yeah, we can just keep going and hopefully pass through this light without having to do another stop. Although that light also turned green. So yeah, see, this is like an example of like exactly what I was just talking about. Like if you scan ahead in these situations, like I just saved myself from, okay, I guess the traffic is so bad that I still need to go into neutral, but you get the idea, right? Next tip I have for you guys, and this is more applicable when you're driving on a freeway and not really in like stop and go traffic like with lights like this. Try not to vary your speed too much. What I mean by that is like the more you change your speed, the faster you accelerate or the harder you brake. Like naturally, the faster you'll have to take actions and shift gears and just maneuver your gearbox and your car so that you're in the right gear. And you have to take those actions faster because you're accelerating faster and you're slowing down faster. Let's say like you're driving, right? There's a soccer mom driving a fucking Porsche Cayenne in front of you, and they're just tailgating the fuck out of the car in front of them. And so they're speeding up with the car, like, you know, maybe they're speeding up to like 25, 30 miles an hour at sometimes. And then they're also like hitting the brakes and slowing down, maybe coming to a complete stop at times, maybe slowing down to like 5 miles an hour. Like, if you're doing that every 30 seconds, you're gonna be in a world of pain, because you're constantly gonna have to go from like first to second to third gear, back down to first, maybe even come to a stop, and then you're just gonna have to start again from a stop over and over and over again. And that's just gonna put a bunch of unnecessary wear on your clutch, and honestly a bunch of unnecessary wear on your brain. Like, there's no reason to put yourself through that. Your goal when you're driving manual, especially in those situations, is to kind of like gauge what the average speed of the car in front of you is going. So let's say like maybe every 30 seconds, the person in front of you is driving at an average of 15 miles an hour. Then all you need to do is the car behind them is just to go at 15 miles an hour. You don't need to be constantly speeding up and slowing down. Don't worry about filling the gap between you and the car in front of you. At some point, they're gonna have to slow down again because, you know, they're going again like 30 miles an hour, 5 miles an hour. That gap will naturally just get filled. So don't worry about like a gap forming because you're maybe going slower than them at some points. You can kind of figure out the average speed of the flow of traffic based on like the cars around you when you're on the freeway. And you can use that to your advantage to save yourself from having to shift gears as frequently and to take as many actions. Another like good extension of this is in like stop and go traffic on the freeway. Rather than constantly having to shift into neutral and first, let's say you're in a situation on the freeway where traffic is literally like crawling at a standstill. And it's the type of thing where like people are moving forward a little bit and then stopping, moving forward a little bit, stopping. That is gonna put a lot of wear on your clutch if you're constantly slipping it to get going, and then you're stopping, and then you're slipping it to get going, especially if you're on like an uphill. What you should do in these situations is purposely leave a gap between you and the car in front of you, and just constantly stay rolling in first in as low of an RPM as possible, like just slightly above idle so you're not lugging or stalling your engine. Allow there to be a gap so that when that car in front of you inevitably comes to a stop, right, you can just keep rolling. And you've hopefully given yourself enough of a gap so that by the time they start moving again, you haven't caught up to them yet. So that's like an extension of this strategy of like trying to figure out like the average speed of the traffic around you and just staying at that speed so that you don't have to take as many actions. There honestly aren't that many tips to this video because at the end of the day, like most of this stuff it's not really like technical stuff that has to do with driving manual. It's more of just like mindset and like general strategies that you can apply, right, to your driving so that you kind of like make your life a little bit easier when you're driving. My final point is go into driving in traffic, especially if you're like a new manual driver, right? Go into driving in traffic with like a good mindset. And so what do I mean by that? Like, first of all, get this out of the way. You're not better than any of the people around you for driving manual, okay? Like, you're not afforded any sort of like extra privileges on the road because you're driving a stick shift. You chose this for yourself. And so when you get in difficult situations and, you know, they may be inadvertently caused by other people, like, there's no point in getting upset at other people and thinking like, oh, you fucking drive an automatic. How can you be doing this? Like, I'm in a manual. Like, I need like more privilege or whatever. Like, that type of thinking is pointless, number one. And number two, you're gonna run into a lot of situations where shit happens. When you spend that moment and that mental energy thinking about that and being upset about that, you are just going to drive worse because you're not actually spending your mental energy and your focus on just driving manual well, especially when you're just starting out and like, you know, you're able to drive around, but it still requires a bit of thought for you to drive smoothly and to drive well. Like, you're gonna need that mental energy. You're gonna need that focus to drive. So don't worry about like, if someone does something kind of shitty to you, like just take it in stride, be like, all right, like, you know, maybe they're just in a rush or whatever. Maybe it's an emergency and just move on with driving because there's really no point dwelling on shit like this. At the end of the day, when you're driving through heavy traffic, you're not competing against anyone on the road, right? Like, ultimately, you and everyone around you are just kind of like victims of a shitty circumstance. You guys are victims of like a broken system. Whoever manages like all the roads, like they didn't account for this level of traffic to be on the roads, and that's why you guys are all stuck in like bad traffic. Like, if you go in with this better mindset about driving through traffic and not like getting upset with people around you, and I know it's really hard, But if you try to just have like a more amicable mindset going into driving through heavy traffic, and this goes for even if you're not driving a stick, right? This just goes for any driving. Like, I feel like your overall driving will just improve a lot. Your mood and like your current mental state is heavily reflected by how you drive, more so than an automatic, because you're in control of so much more of the car, and so your emotions kind of rub off a lot more on the driving experience. And so I found myself actually starting improving a lot and handle like bad situations in traffic a lot better when I said goodbye to that way of thinking. My next piece of advice for mentality is to just like put yourself in the deep end when you're learning to drive through traffic. Like, at the end of the day, like, if you can upshift through gears and downshift like reasonably well, you're ready to drive in like really, really, really busy traffic. There's no like step to graduate to in order to drive in like really, really busy traffic. Like, I think one of the reasons I was able to learn to drive manual so quickly, just completely by myself, was because I kind of just like threw myself into the deep end and I just started driving in like really heavy traffic, and whatever shitty situations came up, I kind of just handled them. You're only going to be as good at driving as like the situations that you put yourself in, right? Like, you're never going to learn if you never put yourself in those situations. So don't ever tell yourself like, oh, I don't think I'm ready for this. Like, bro, like if you can upshift 1 through 3, 1 through 6, whatever, and you can downshift reasonably well, you're ready, dude. Like, don't hold yourself back, because you're just gonna be holding back your development. Damn, look at that Supra. Dude, the offsets on those wheels are crazy. They're so wide. That shit's so low. Oh. Let me know if you have any questions about anything that I mentioned. If you have any other tips that you think would help others, post them in the comments. As always, I hope you have a great rest of your week, and I will catch you on the next one. Peace.